Well, hi there once again. Middle of the summer, it's softball season, although every month, every day is softball season. But we're in the heart of young athletes working to find a place to play, and coaches, young and old, sitting on buckets all around the country watching the best play leading up to September 1st. She's Amanda Freed. My name is Daron Sutton. For more than a decade, we've been able to talk about this great sport together, and it's been my pleasure to learn from the legend, and you'll do so today. But Amanda, I think we're both going to learn from a D2 coach who has made his home at North Georgia in Dahlonega, Georgia. So much so that he's won a couple of national championships. He's won more than 1,000 games. He's made an impact in a community. Mike Davenport will join us, just fresh off of winning the 2023 D2 National Championship. And what a breath of fresh air, all the winning at the D2 level, and he loves being at that level.
And I love having coaches like that at those levels, just really focusing on developing these girls and developing young women to be the best they can be, character, athletics. And you could really see the care that he puts in from his team building at the beginning of the year, the trust that's built between these girls. I mean, he talked about just how much they cared about succeeding for each other, not themselves, at a time in our sport when it is a very individual sport. These athletes were focused on each other more than anything else. And that was a driving force behind their championship run this season.
Jess Shults is going to join us, Perfect Games National Scouting Director. And there are some hot subjects certainly to talk about. Obviously, the Japan All-Star Series. We can look at the roster. TC Colorado playing in the Canada Cup. There's some fun athletes there. DJ Gasso makes the jump after changing Utah offensively. He goes to Arkansas, jumps into the SEC. Rachel Garcia wins Athletes Unlimited. I know you're certainly familiar with her game, but there's a lot of neat things to talk about this time of year with Jess coming in and kind of breaking down the most recent hot topics in softball.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk because just every day there's something new, whether it's portal transfers that you're not expecting, coaching transfers that could impact programs. And it's an interesting conversation because you want to be great in this sport, but when you become great, there's that chance you might leave if you're at a program where there's room for growth. And so things are always changing, getting better. And I love also seeing a lot of these young up and coming coaches also join programs with the ability to add that other assistant coach. So there are a lot of things that are changing in our sport that are exciting.
Hey, real quick, before we get into our guest, our baseball brethren have joined the logic of later recruiting. In other words, shutting down communication until, well, it's August 1st in baseball, September 1st in softball, but of the junior year. Kudos to them because it's allowing development and more peace of mind for families. You and I for years have gone back and forth. I've come to the other side of the tracks. I'm on your side of the tracks now. But describe to me the excitement level for athletes and maybe some that it's even unknown. That's September 1st. Look, you're playing all summer. You've wrapped up your sophomore season. You're playing all summer heading into your junior year. Because everyone can go at the same time, only September 1. How exciting is this summer? How exciting is September 1st?
Well, I've heard athletes talking about this day for years leading up to it. And this summer in particular for some of those athletes means a lot. Like they feel a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of excitement. So all those feelings going on because recruiting is difficult and you want to be seen by the right coaches. And so I think that there's a lot of excitement, but also a lot of unknown. And I just hope that these athletes realize that the journey is different for everybody. And we talk about that so much that not everybody's going to get that call on September 1st that you've been waiting for, but you're going to get the call that you're meant to get at the right time. And everybody's journey is different. And especially the way the portal's been playing out, the coaching changes, there's a lot of things that might delay the recruiting process. But I think in general, this time of year is fun and exciting. Colorado, all these major tournaments, the coaches are out and they're looking for some good talent to add to their programs.
Yeah, you and I are leading up to being able to have the good fortune of calling the PGF National Championships again this year. It's been a long time we've been fortunate enough to do it out in beautiful Southern California. I'm going to tell you, before we get to Mike Davenport, it was, I don't know, let's say 8 years ago for the sake of the story. And we were at Stanford calling Amanda and I a Pac-12 series together. And we were speaking with the leadership, the coaches. I think it was a Cal Stanford series. And man, I was banging not the drum in front of coaches. I was listening, being respectful. But when we'd be away from saying, oh, baseball has it right. They let them sign at 12 and 13 and 14 years old. Oh, have I come to the other side of the fence and completely agree. It's exciting for baseball. It's exciting for softball. When we come back, a conversation with Mike Davenport, who doesn't quite have to deal with all that NIL and coaching transfer and transfer portal craziness. He gets the players that didn't quite work out at D1, or maybe it's not the right fit. They want to play for him because they win rings and trophies. It's Coach Davenport. It's North Georgia. This is Perfect Game Softball. Let's get it going. I find myself really excited to connect with this guest. My ties to the South, and many of us have spent time down there, but a place like Dahlonega, Georgia, hits home for me personally, hits home for my father in the time he was there with the Braves organization. And so part of my heart is always in Georgia. Now with East Cobb, the heartbeat of Perfect Games operation on the baseball side, not on the softball side. But our next guest can speak to that, I guess, if we're going to nudge him into that area. But he's a national champion. And of all the national champions this year, his team had the best record. And I'm talking about Division I, Division III, NAIA. His team was the best. The head coach of North Georgia joins us, Mike Davenport. Mike, thanks for being with us. Congratulations on the championship.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be back with you guys again and the Perfect Game broadcast. And it's just it's been a tremendous year for our young ladies, and I'm very proud of them. And most people have spoken to me about them, and the biggest thing I can attribute to that too is they're better people than they are players, and they were national champions on the ball field.
I love asking the question to coaches because coaches celebrate and managers in big league baseball or football coaches different than players. Players, boom, out of that dugout, dog pile as it should be. Coaches look at one another. You have a smaller staff. Your staff was a national coaching staff of the year. As you watched your players celebrate and you hugged and shook hands with your coaches, what was it like to look out and see those players out on the field?
It's the coolest thing. And I think as a coach, that's kind of what your snapshot. And not everybody can experience that. When you're at third base, I get a view that no one else in the country gets. And I know when we won it in 15, I felt myself in the dugout backing up as the seventh inning went along. I don't know, my body just kept moving back, and basically so I could get in vision of the entire celebration in 2015. And this year was no different. In the dugout, it was one of the easiest seventh innings I've ever been a part of. And usually you knew it was going to be a grind, and it was pretty quick and painless. And that's a tribute to our pitcher, Kristen Davis, who threw that day. And things just kind of rock and rolled. And then you just step back, and when, you don't know until that final out is made, and you'd never want to celebrate until that final out is made. But when it was, then it just, you watch the kids celebrate. And that's, as a coach, that's the most enjoyable thing, is to watch your young people celebrate what they've worked so hard for.
When you've been a part of so many successful programs in your time there, and won tournament titles, regular season titles, a couple of national championships, what was the biggest difference between this team and maybe a lot of your other successful teams and your 2015 championship team? What's that difference maker in winning the title at the end?
Man, I think it's like, and the good thing about coaching is I never change. I'm always here. So I get to see the difference in the teams. And this 2023 team was just, it was smooth. They got along so well. And I know everybody says that, but this was a different group. My 2010 team, 2015 team, those were the ones that would hang out in college and have a good time and enjoy that. But this group was very focused. I'm not saying they didn't enjoy it, but they were a little bit more level-headed. We had a good group of young people, freshmen, sophomores, that had good personalities, and let our juniors and seniors kind of lead them. And I think with anything, they were the most unselfish team I've ever been around. We talk about entitlement in athletics at the high school age, college age, even the professional level. There's a lot of entitlement going around. And for these young people, there was none at all. And I can honestly say that it was refreshing, very rewarding to watch them support each other. I think deep down they wanted to, and they should have. They should have wanted the ball more. They should have wanted to get more at bats and to play defense more. But they never expressed that to each other. They may have talked to me privately, and we keep working, you'll get your shot. But amongst themselves, I've never seen a group pull for each other as much as this group did, and to celebrate each other's achievements as much as this group did.
I love that, because it's hard in our game today, right? With everything going on. We talked a little bit pre-show of all the things going on that create kind of an individual feel in the athlete. To create the team environment that you do is just tremendous. And I loved reading about your RBI program, initiative, activity that you do at the beginning of the year, the respect, balance, intensity that you put these girls through just to build that level of respect for one another and trust. Tell us a little bit about that, because I love that. And there's team bonding, but then there's team bonding that really works and brings a team together.
Well, here I've always paid an homage to our past players, past coaches, past trainers, everybody who's got us to this point today. And that's even in our bullpens. Honor and respect those who played the game before you in both bullpens. And that's even for our visiting teams, that we're all playing a game that folks like you have come across and laid the groundwork and given us the opportunity to play the collegiate game at the level that we are. The RBI week is something we do early on, first week of classes, that we get the girls on campus, and we're blessed to be in a beautiful part of the country, the North Georgia mountains. And we take advantage of that. We run a lot of waterfall steps and mountain trails and just do different things. We break the girls usually into 4 teams. They compete against each other in a very animated way, lively, very competitive. And for our new players, that's really their first taste of, each other's personalities. For coaches, it's nice because we provide them with a task to complete. And for us, we kind of sit back and watch their personalities come out. And it's a nice evaluation period for us with our transfer players, our new players, freshmen coming in. So for us to kind of see who they are. Do they listen well? Do they have good ideas? Are they good teammates? Are they supportive? Do they need to come out of their shell a little bit more? So by the end of those 4 days, they're physically exhausted, mentally exhausted as well. We finish up with a ropes course facility here on campus that really challenges us, because when the body goes tired, the mind starts to wander and to challenge you as well. So we kind of put that on them, and to see them kind of step out of their comfort zone is pretty unique. And then if they make it through, which they all have, I haven't lost any players yet in 23 years. Then they realize that, I've got a group of sisters right here that have my back. And I tell them, this is the hardest thing you're going to do all year. From here on out, it's playing ball. Let's go get it.
It's interesting when we look at your pitching staff, there's a trio that really gobble a lot of your innings. And I'm almost leaving out Delaney when I say that. It was really a quartet with a very young sophomore, Aniston Rada, who I'm sure has learned a ton watching. But speak a little bit to the sharing of the innings and how you made decisions. Was it matchups? Was it a situation? The names, by the way, are Delaney Heberlin, Sophie Mooney, Kristen Davis, who pitched a shutout in the championship, and Tybee Denton. I mean, all of them, folks, for our viewers, were dynamic. All of them had ERAs in the low 2s or the 1s. All of them more than a strikeout per innings pitched. Kind of speak how you worked that pitching staff to so much success and how much they helped you do that with maybe selflessness on occasion.
Yeah, and I think going back to our 2015 national title, we rode Courtney Poole quite a bit. And we had a number 2, but she just didn't throw as many innings, and the level of her ability was a little bit distant from Courtney. I think my 2 summers I spent right after that with the USSSA Pride coaching, I learned to kind of manage a staff more than I had at the collegiate level. It was very much like Major League Baseball set up, maybe a middle person and definitely a reliever if you had one. And, I think recruiting dictates a little bit how you manage your roster. And for us, we just have 4 or 5 pitchers right now that can win games for us. And so it became a matchup situation, who felt best that day, who matched up best with our opponents that time. And what was unique, and you talked on it, on the unselfishness, many of our pitchers live together. And for pitchers, we understand that they're queens of the circle, and sometimes that doesn't work. But this group is extremely tight, and that's unusual for a pitching staff. They shared the ball. They enjoyed each other's success. And that's a tribute to those young people as and their character, how much they pulled for each other. Delaney was one that, as you mentioned, was huge for us in 2022. Down the stretch of this season, maybe not quite as much, but never wavered in her support of her teammates. And even at post-year, exit interviews, we talked, And she's like, Coach, I get it. And, I'm trying to give her an alley to say, hey, we got your back. You're fine. She's like, I get it. So you just don't find that in young people much anymore. Aniston Wright, who you had mentioned, that's a young lady who was injured out of high school, hadn't pitched in a complete game since 2018, I believe. Injured her first 2 years in college when we got her. And, she ended up pitching a 7-inning game, complete game. And our whole pitching staff, the other 4, were as ecstatic as we'd won the national title for her. So those are the special moments that you create. And that's the kids doing that on their own.
Aniston Wright, 1 start, 1 complete game. How cool is that? I can imagine your heart was very, very full that day. I'm in this mode and being around young athletes that I'm always thinking about who's next. And so I'm excited for you with Sydney Blair, a freshman that came in. You had so many key contributors that are veterans, but she stood amongst the top. She stood amongst your impact. Outfielders certainly didn't have a miscue in the outfield all season long. Got on base about half the time, stole a bunch of bags. Tell me a little bit about the future of Sydney and how much she impacted you this year.
Well, Sydney, another one that came in and wasn't going to play much as a freshman. We had Mallory Parker returning in center field. Mal played her first 10 games, I believe, for us in the spring. Tore ACL for the second or third time. She's lacrosse in high school and a couple other instances. So we ended up moving some kids around a little bit. And, Sydney ended up just taking it and was ready. And I tell people all the time, if you're recruiting 6 freshmen coming in out of high school, probably 2 are really ready to compete and the other 4 just need a year to develop a little bit. And that's normal and that's not unusual. But Sydney was ready. And, we had moved around a couple of outfielders to see who was going to replace Mallory when she got hurt. And at the time Mal was hitting, I think about 500 when she went down with an injury early in the season. And to put a freshman out in center field was, took a lot of thought on my side because I didn't want to. You don't want to ruin the kid. You don't want to put her out there in a big situation like that. That's like playing shortstop or catching as a freshman, and even where she hit in the batting order was challenging. And she had her moments where she was questioned, hey, I'm just a freshman, but she stayed with it, and man, she made a huge difference for us everywhere, offensively and definitely defensively.
I want to know about your run game because you scored a ton of runs, but I'm looking at your stolen bases and you have 171 attempts, 147 of those successful. And I look at up and down your lineup. I mean, you just have girls running. Your on base percentage as a team was in the mid 4s as well. So obviously you can get on base, but is that just, do you teach that run game, or was it just you accidentally had a whole bunch of real fast girls, you're going to steal bases? But to me, it looks like it's a game for you on the bases. When you get girls on, let's see how many bases we can swipe and how many runs we can score.
100%. Amanda, I would have loved to coach you or Caitlin Lowe and let you guys just get, it's green light and we go. Honestly, I think it's back to my basketball background when I coached women's basketball here, and you blend that with baseball, and it was fast break baseball to me. I heard Coach Murphy speak years ago when we were NAI and he was at Alabama. He spoke about base running and how that was effective for them. And I felt like, well, if he can do it at the SEC level, surely I can do this at the NAI level. So it's one of those areas of the game, and I don't want to share too much because you don't want to give everybody the nod, but I think it's an area of the game that gets undercoached. If we can steal a runner to here a game, even a weekend, it makes a big difference. And I think one year we calculated we had 20 extra runs throughout the course of a season on balls in the dirt. And 20 runs in 60 games was a lot. But to preface that, in the fall, we really work on base running, and the players have to trust that they can fail. And we stress that they're going to fail. But for our new players, they don't want to fail because then it shows that maybe I made a mistake in the recruiting process, and that's not the case. We really stress failure in the fall. We push the envelope as much as we can so we have an idea of what we can and cannot do by the time the spring rolls around. And that's something that the girls embrace. And by the time they're sophomores, juniors, seniors, I don't have to say much. And if you watch some of our games, there was several instances we get thrown out at home, and, Coach Davenport doesn't look like he knows what he's doing, but the other 5 times we're going to score and we're going to make you play catch. And I just think that's been our MO. I recruit athletes. I want young ladies who can run and are aggressive and have a good feel for the game and embrace that part of the game as well.
I love that. And when you talk about the team camaraderie, with that level of trust, you don't really have to tell your younger athletes much. Like you said, they just follow the lead of these older athletes that have bought in. And I love that. So as you're on the recruiting trail this summer and going into the fall, what's next for your program? How do you now bounce out of the national championship, and do you just start fresh, new season? What's it looking like for you?
It all kind of runs together, to be honest with you. We're trying to close the book on this one. We're trying to celebrate this one as well. And then, of course, I think 2 weeks after we got back to town, we had freshman orientation for our new athletes coming in. So you're kind of doing a little bit of everything every day. But you want these kids, this group, to enjoy this one probably until, honestly, next September. And then we'll kind of, once school starts back up, we'll get after it and kind of redevelop ourselves and reunite ourselves. But I think the recruiting piece is something in my career that has changed with the portal now, and just everything going on with NILs and portals, and the landscape of the college game has changed quite a bit. And I talked to kids at camp, and I said, you now have to be better than you've ever been, because we don't have to recruit the high school student athletes. And I think in the past, the high school seniors had to be the best seniors in the country. Now they have to be the best seniors in the country, but they also have to be better than the freshmen and sophomores that are currently on college rosters, because that is where college coaches are now going instead of going down.
Tell me a little bit about your son, Michael, or does he go by Mike? The official
Harper.
name was Michael. What's that?
It's Harper. It's Michael Harper, so we go by Harper.
So tell me about Harper then, because he has an interesting tie. You're recruiting, like you're one of the at your level, and maybe even in comp to some of the D1 coaches. You're out there doing as well as anyone else. Now you are a mentor to your son, Harper, who is going through this journey. He's a 2024. He's a gifted athlete, plays all three sports. He's a pretty speedy outfielder. What's next for him? This is going to be an interesting summer. You have all this work stuff. You have a lovely wife, too, that you have to spend some time with. But my goodness, this is a busy dad summer for you, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, my wife's kind of handled everything at home while we're out chasing trophies and wins here at North Georgia. Does a tremendous job there with both my children. And my daughter's a rising junior here at North Georgia playing basketball for Coach Buffy Burson. But Harper's ready to kind of create his own path, his own journey, and we're here for it. Was able to coach him up until he was about 14 years old. And then once he got to the high school level, it was time for dad to step away and let somebody else take the reins and kind of get him in front of some college coaches. And he's been blessed to play with the TGD backs here locally, and Johnny Magliazzi, who pitched for my Gators a couple of years back. And so he's got a good group of young people that he's been around. It's nice to see him go out. He is, like you had mentioned, Daron, a three sport athlete here at Lumpkin County High School, AAA school here in the state of Georgia. Plays a little wide receiver, a little cornerback, and then shoots it pretty well, getting back into basketball shape a little bit. And then baseball, of course, playing out in center field, lefty bat, throws it right. So I'm excited to see his journey. Don't know where it's going to take us, but we've been down at East Kyle with Perfect Game quite a bit this summer, and look forward to the next month. And it's neat to be on this side of it, but I learn a lot, honestly, that helps me in my profession as well, being a parent now, because on that side, I know what to ask, and now I know what to kind of give when we do have recruits on campus.
Yeah, the natural angst that mom, dad, stepmom, stepdad have, and you have a feel because you walk in their shoes now a little bit. Hey, by the way, for our viewers, we're talking about an athlete that in 66 games played at PG events only. I'm not talking about anywhere else. 528 on base. Good looking picture of him, by the way. If ever a ball player looked like a ball player, I'm looking on the website now. We wish him the best. Congratulations on your championship. Thanks for letting us come into your office and see that beautiful piece of hardware over your shoulder. And have a wonderful summer reconnecting with all the people that mean the most to you.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much, and we hope to see you soon.
The Nighthawks win it. They do it again. Their second national championship at the D2 level. Again, at any level of all four-year programs, no one had a better season win-loss wise. And of course, they held the trophy than what went on at North Georgia. More great conversations. This is Perfect Game Softball. Thanks for hanging with us on Perfect Game TV. Perfect Game's National Scouting Director is Jessica Shults, and she spends time with us now. A lot of fun things in the summertime. Jess, Amanda, and I in our open, we're talking about the lead up to September 1 for young juniors in high school, how excited they are to get out in front of coaches. The elite, the top 100, 200, they've got a pretty good feel. They're making their decisions, but the remaining thousands are anxious, hoping to open eyes. I'd first love to get your thoughts about this summer. The rules changed more than a half decade ago, but for athletes that have completed their sophomore year, how much does this summer mean to them? Let's try and move past the anxiety. It's going to be there, but with the new rule changes that even baseball has adopted, how fun is this summer for sophomores that become rising juniors?
I think it's great. I think the rule change was the right thing for our sport, giving these athletes a little bit more time to develop, allow them to enjoy the game in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, when you saw kids committing back then and in those years. So I'm really excited. It gives these kids a little bit more understanding of who they are, a little bit more understanding of, doing their research on different schools. And I think it gives them a better, idea of where they're at as softball players as well. And, their commitment to the sport and wanting to take their game to the next level. So this summer is just an exciting time because you get to see, I feel like you see these sophomores competing a little bit harder because they're wanting those coaches to notice them. You're seeing them, not just play just because it's, a friendly or something like that. You're seeing them compete every game because they know all eyes are on them and it's their shot to really make an impression when comes September 1, So I think it's a really, really big time for them in the sport.
Amanda, one of my favorite things to, as a kind of a co-producer and a host of anything that you and I do together, is to pull you and John Rittman in the same room. What a wonderful conversation with the impact he had on your career. Now the Clemson head coach, and he's heading up the roster, the USA roster that goes to Japan in early August. I think what's fun about it, you can talk about John, the roster is crazy. I know, Jess, you have thoughts on the roster, but I think what's exciting about moments like this, as we talk about like Athletes Unlimited and its effort to impact the sport, is a roster like this and a trip like this impacts the sport and really grows the sport to go global. I think it's a fun time of year. The roster is ridiculous, but I think it's such a fun time of year for these athletes.
I'm so excited for Coach Rittman to be back at the helm of USA Softball because of his knowledge, experience, wisdom in the game, his international experience. And I love that these athletes are going to have an opportunity to hear and play for him. I think that's so important to have the different voices. And you can always get better at the game. No matter what age you are or what level you're at, there's always room for growth. And so I think that he's somebody who could really provide that even to these best elite athletes. I mean, look at this roster. Come on, going out. This to me is like you just saw them playing at the highest level. And it's like you just pick and choose your favorites and put them all on one roster. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch them compete together and represent USA. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like this roster's depth is just amazing. I mean, it's one thing to pick and choose, but I think going to that USA tryout and performing at that international level is a different feel. I feel like we've both been at those tryouts and the jitters are coming. So to see these athletes that we've just watched be able to produce and, expand to that level of competition, I think it's awesome for them to get that experience representing their country. I mean, just looking at the roster, the one that stands out to me is Valerie Cagle. She had a phenomenal year, coming off of Player of the Year, and now gets the opportunity to represent her country and, continue to grow the sport. And, I've grown up, playing against John Rittman, and, I think he just brings so much value to our sport and just a great knowledge.
Kinsey Hansen catching Nyjah Kennedy. Sign me up for that. That sounds like all sorts of fun. And then supporting her and hitting her. Jess, this is an interesting time of year. You guys, again, were bringing me up to speed on that third coach's spot for programs that can afford it. So we love, kind of getting locked in on the head coach's carousel. In your perspective, because of that additional spot, that paid spot on a lot of these teams that have it in their budgets, or some changes because of it, you actually have your eyes on the development of young coaches through the assistant coaches carousel, yes?
1000%. I think the assistant coaches carousel and, their commitment to wanting to go back to, some of them are wanting to go back to the universities they played at is so fun to watch. I think Heather Tarr comes to example for me of bringing back 2 alumni to her staff. Courtney Gano and Victoria Hayward are coming back to Seattle to help build that program and, share their knowledge of what they did in that program. And now they've established themselves as coaches. And now she's bringing them back to her staff. Victoria Hayward comes off a great season with San Diego State, making it to a super regional. And now she's able to expand that and bring it back, help those athletes a little bit more. And then obviously we have Sierra on the show all the time, and her sister making the move to go back and be with Melissa Lombardi at Oregon, who she played under at Oklahoma. So I think that connection is so special as well. I think for coaches, being able to bring back their players because they've been with them, they know how they want to run their program, they've been in the trenches. So I think that's such a value add for head coaches, and get that buy-in from your assistant coaches. It's just so fun to watch those carousels start to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I love watching some of these first-time head coaches getting the opportunity. So Morgan Zirkle going back to Marshall and getting her first opportunity to coach at her alma mater. I think that that's so special. I love seeing that. And athletes like Chelsea Spencer, who ended up back at Cal, because you have that certain level of pride for the organization that you're at. And then Lindsay Leftwich going to NC State. I mean, there are just so many opportunities for these young up-and-coming coaches to take over programs for those that are retiring after maybe long stints at their role. But I love that position, that assistant coaching position, is opening up because of those young coaches. And I think it's going to create a lot of parity in the sport and coaching. But also I think the development of the coaches is going to be so great, because it's hard to take on a volunteer role. And I know so many coaches that want to get in to coaching at a high level. And now they have an opportunity to do that immediately, get good coaching experience, learn from the best, and then hopefully take over their own programs sometime in the near future.
Alessa Bonstrom, Julia Jimenez, Aaliyah Ballarde, all were dynamic. DJ Gasso was the hitting coach. And it's interesting, those assistants that you wanted to talk about, Jessica, they're not the ones that always get the headlines unless it's local. But if your last name is Gasso and you're elevating up through the ranks, you're going to get a headline. And just DJ makes the move from Utah, where he had that impact. He took advantage of his teaching skills, and it's a good place to hit, both of them, those two things. And he jumps into the SEC. For me, it just screams, ladder head coach coming soon, but excited for DJ Gasso.
1000%. And I think it brings back that connection. Courtney Deifel was at Oklahoma as a graduate assistant. She's been through that program. DJ's been through that program. So, bringing that back together is a no-brainer. I think DJ's, proven himself at Utah. He got those players to buy in and got them back to a World Series for the first time. So I think what he's doing is really, really great with the hitters. He's got a great perspective. Obviously we all know his mom, but I think that he's kind of building his own name for himself and, going into the Pac-12, now going into the SEC and creating a name in a different way. And I think he's really impacted these players. I think it's a great move for Courtney Deifel to bring him onto her staff. And like you said, bringing these young coaches into the realm and, their relatability to players, they're just bringing so much dynamic to these staffs. And so, no, I think that was a big time move for him and a great hire.
So, Amanda, real quickly, with Rachel Garcia, and obviously her lineage to you and you guys certainly journeying through the programs at different eras of the sport, it always means a lot when you have an athlete like that wins a championship. She wins Athletes Unlimited. They had kind of unfortunately, because of the good Lord and weather, they kind of a wonky end to all of it. The big run is coming up here very, very soon, where one of our co-hosts will go play in it, certainly. But that still means a lot to see Rachel pull that off. Yes?
Well, yes, but look at the type of player she is. I mean, when you look at those rosters and you think who could potentially come out on top of this, it's a player like Rachel who can get it done in the circle, does it at the plate. I mean, she can just get those points left and right. And so I'm not surprised, but I also love that she could be out of the college game for a couple of years now, but her game is still on top. Obviously won the gold medal and did all the things, but it takes a lot of time and dedication to keep yourself at that high level. And so I love that she was able to do that and come out on top this season.
Hey, by the way, quick follow-up on all this coaches, recruiting, carousel assistants going here. Just standard, concrete foundation. No changes at UCLA. Talk about a trusting staff that's been together forever. personal opinion. You know them all very well. It's got to make you proud to see that stability there where you played.
I do. I love that. And I love it for athletes when you look at that program. It's similar to in Oklahoma. You feel like you know who's going to be there when you get there, because this coaching, it's a carousel. It really is. You never know. And so I think it's so important for these athletes to recruit the university, the school, and then that coaching staff, and what have they done? What are their hopes and dreams for that program? But you don't often find an entire staff that stays together for as long as they have. So maybe it'll be interesting to see who they pick up as that fourth, or how that kind of evolves. But yeah, I'm super proud, and I love the program.
Is it you?
Do you know what LA traffic is like? That's too far for me.
Okay,
That's way too far.
Just thought I'd ask. I have you here. You're on the payroll for this 1 hour, so I've got to ask you that question. You know?
No. Well, it hasn't been offered to me, but no. They're going to have the pick of a lot of young coaches or maybe experienced coaches who are just looking, to learn from some of the best that are out there. So, but no, I love to see a staff stay together at a place for a long time.
Yeah, and it's a celebration, Jessica. She talked about it's the same at Oklahoma. Before I let both of you guys go and thank you, I want to ask you, Jessica, perfect games plans for the summer, even for the next 6 months as they continue to grow softball stride by stride, doing it the right way at their events. What are in the plans for this summer and even into the fall for PG events? How can these young athletes find a place to be found by Perfect Game?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think you kind of started the conversation with, trying to get those top players that are wanting to get recruited. This summer, we're going to be out not only at Perfect Game tournaments, but we're going to other affiliations, PGF, we're going to Alliance, and really trying to find those top athletes. We're going to put out our top 50 list coming September 1 of athletes we think are projected to be, some of the best across the country. And then working into Perfect Game this fall, we've got 4 combines on the schedule right now. We've got a couple in Iowa, in Des Moines, Iowa. We've got one in Kansas City. We've got one in Colorado, and then one over in Oklahoma again for next year. So I think it's going to be a really good summer of getting just to see athletes, get to see the best of the best, but also, find those diamonds in the rough, those kids that necessarily maybe don't always get seen, and potentially give some light to those kids that, need a little bit more recognition.
We'll help you do that. That's a great idea. By the way, someone who can work nicely between PGF and Alliance, they don't call that Perfect Game softball. They just call that Switzerland, if you can do that. So enjoy your summer. Either way, the athletes win in that setting. Amanda, thank you very much for your insights. Jess, we really appreciate it. We also want to thank Mike Davenport and congratulate North Georgia for winning that national championship. Again, one last reminder, his squad, number 1, Division 1, Division 3, NAI. Of course, he ran the table just about at Division 2. Congratulations to North Georgia. We're here all the time, and thanks for spending time with us on Perfect Game Softball on Perfect Game TV.